Now this one I liked a lot, actually. This is one that I think will get a lot of my subscribers probably annoyed with me, or in profound disagreement with me. Do you think that the new atheist movement is ultimately a good or a bad thing for skeptics and free thinkers? With regards to the erosion of entrenched respect, the culturally entrenched respect for religion that we currently suffer under, I think it's a double-edged sword. I find myself... First of all, this notion of a new atheist movement is interesting. I don't think there is, in many ways, a new atheist movement. Rather, there is simply more public expression of positions that have always been there, but have been sort of culturally repressed or regarded as disrespectful, etc., etc., particularly in American society. This is something that I really have to address, actually. That one of the core differences, it seems, from the outside is the position of religion between in UK society and US society. In the UK, faith is not respected, or rather, it is not automatically respected as a good thing. This is largely a secular culture. The barring small minority groups, the vast majority of people in this country do not go to church. They do not pray, and the vast majority, they don't necessarily disbelieve in God, but they have this nebulous sort of well, I believe there's something out there, but I don't believe any of the religions have got it right. That seems to be the most consistent thing to me. Whereas in the US, it seems faith is something that is culturally entrenched, so culturally entrenched and automatically respected, and very specific faith as well. We, in the UK, we see people like the fundamentalists, the evolution deniers, the creationists, and it appalls us on many... That's not to say there aren't fundamentalists and creationists here. There are, but they are laughed at. They're regarded as lunatics, and quite right. Rather, I think what we're seeing from the new atheist movement is simply public expression of existing perspectives, and perspectives that have existed for a long time, and much more so than some circles within society are willing to admit. For the most part, I think that they are necessary. I find myself in disagreement with Dawkins and with particularly with Sam Harris. I think Sam Harris comes out with some of the most spurious, ill-conceived bullshit imaginable. Hitchens, who I love. I do like Hitchens, not because I agree with him. I just find him very amusing and very charming. I think I'd be a bit starstruck if I came across Hitchens. Actually, I find him a bit. He's not he is attractive. That's the funny thing. He's not physically attractive, but he's a very, very personably attractive human being. But no, I think that their existence is necessary. I think it provides a necessary counterpoint to those churches and those particular religious factions that are trying to get their beliefs infiltrated into public discourse, who are trying to impose their beliefs upon the rest of us. But at the same time, I think they make some very profound mistakes. One thing I really hate about the New Atheist movement is their statement that, and their blanket judgment of all people who describe themselves as this or that. For example, those who describe themselves as Christian. I really hate the notion, and they come out with, this is one of Sam Harris's things. He says that liberal Christians bear some of the blame for what the fundamentalists do because they provide cover for them. Bullshit, quite frankly. Utter bullshit. You cannot make one group of people or certain individuals take responsibility for what other human beings believe or do, even if they masquerade under the same label. It's not fair. It's like saying that all people who describe themselves as socialist or as communist nowadays bear some responsibility for what Stalin did. It's absolute nonsense. And I don't understand what that means anyway. I don't think you can judge people or the potential harm or whatever that people might conduct based on what label they assign to themselves. If you gathered all of the atheists in the world together in one place, you would find very little in common between them. The only thing you would find in common, perhaps, is the rejection of a particular God. That's it. That's all you would find. I think if you gathered all of the Christians together in the world, you would find a similar situation. There would be I think there would be more things in common. But what does that label Christian imply? Some would say that it implies that you believe to a certain degree in the teachings of the Bible. But I know people who describe themselves as Christian who don't believe that Christ existed. They don't believe that Christ was crucified on the cross. They don't believe that he was the Son of God. But rather they take the stories and they believe that they have some profound human resonance, some fundamental human resonance, and apply them to their lives in a metaphorical way. And I think that's entirely healthy and perfectly legitimate. I have absolutely no problem with that. I think what the New Atheist movement are there for, what they should do, is target specifically those religious perspectives that cause quantifiable harm. I think that's what they're there for. And although there is this thing, particularly amongst the YouTube atheist community, that there is no such thing as a fundamentalist atheist, and I agree, there is no such thing as a fundamentalist atheist, but, and this is a big but, what many miss is that any ideological position, whatever position you hold, can become the basis for a more definite ideology. Atheism can itself, although it is not a coherent ideology in and of itself, it can become the core of an ideology, and I can see that happening. And when that starts to happen, that's when you have the basis for an exclusivist community, for an ideology that says this is right and this is wrong. And I can see within the next couple of decades, perhaps, there becoming a form of atheism that is mandated and entrenched, if we're not careful, with people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins as its figurehead. And I think that would be a terrible thing. I think that would be the worst possible thing that could ever happen. So, to answer your question, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's necessary for there to be a counterpoint to the more extreme forms of religion, but I think that at the same time we need to be very, very, very wary that we don't become a we, ironically, that it operates in a very nebulous and self-critical manner. That's what I'm getting at.